Hello, I'm Maciej Mikos and you're watching News in Depth. Soybeans for rare earth minerals. US President Donald Trump announces success after meeting with his Chinese counterpart, Xi Jinping. But are the tensions between the two global powers really over? To talk about it, we're joined by Matthew Day, Senior Online Editor at TVP World. Good to have you here.
Always a pleasure to be here.
What was really agreed in South Korea?
A number of things were agreed, but I think first of all we should maybe put it in, frame it in a good way that we're not talking about any comprehensive deal here. We have a number of things that were concluded at the meeting, which lasted like 1 hour, 40 minutes. A very short meeting when you consider who was meeting who, and apparently was shorter than expected as well. So, yep, it was important, but it wasn't a comprehensive deal. That will come later, probably maybe next year perhaps. That kind of deal takes a long time to reach. So we had this meeting and a number of conclusions came out of it, there were results. So for example, China will lift a export ban on rare earth metals, which for about a year then I think will be renewed, which is a good win for the United States. And for, as you mentioned, soybeans, so China will apparently buy soybeans, millions of tons, and that will provide relief to US farmers. But it's interesting, once again, how the two sides approach this meeting and how they have commented on it. Like Donald Trump, in very Donald Trump way, said, yeah, it was a great deal. I think he gave it like a score of 12 out of 10.
Precisely, yes.
And talked a lot about it, said it was great that we're going to do this, we're going to do that. While the Chinese response was incredibly reticent. I think, well, I went to the web page of the Chinese news service in the English language, and it's like 3 paragraphs long, and they said that a consensus had been reached on a number of issues, and that was it. Mm-hmm. So clearly, there's interpretation to be made from this.
So basically it's a victory for Donald Trump, right? Who get all he wanted, or not?
I think we have to look at the or not here. Like, for example, take soybeans. Donald Trump and Scott Bessent commented later saying that China would buy millions of tons, like 26 million tons of soybeans and US agricultural products over the next 3 years. The Chinese have made no comment on exact figures at all. They said they have reached an agreement on agricultural trade. So what the Americans say is rather different to what the Chinese say. So it's kind of hard to interpret in that particular issue who has won. And
well, the tariffs have been lowered for China, right? So I guess that's also victory for Beijing.
It is, yeah. Tariffs are down, from
20 to 10?
On 20 to 10 on products related to fentanyl production. Yes. But that reduction means that the average tariff on goods will go down from 57 to 47%, which is still incredibly high. And the average, I think, US goods are tariffed at 32%, which is still incredibly high. So those tariffs still remain, and so means that both sides are still at loggerheads. And in a way, this agreement, while it was good, and it was good for the world as well, so we stepped back from a global trade war, but the reasons for that war are still very much existing. Mm-hmm. So as people have said, it's more like a temporary truce, or a ceasefire rather than an end to the war.
Temporary truce, right? That sounds very much correct. Now, we touched about the topic of fentanyl. Now I'd like us to listen to Donald Trump talking about it.
On fentanyl, we agreed that he was going to work very hard to stop the flow. You know, it's a very complex subject because it's used for lots of different reasons, including anesthetics and things. But he's going to work very hard on it, precursors, and I think you're going to see some real action taken. I've agreed, as you know, I put a 20% tariff on China because of the fentanyl coming in, which is it's a big tariff. And based on his statements today, I reduced it by 10%. So it's 10% instead of 20% effective immediately.
Now, Matt, is fentanyl really that big a problem for the US? What was the scale of this problem? Why is Donald Trump putting so much emphasis on fentanyl?
Well, it's been a huge issue in the United States for years now. It's been a crisis. I can't remember. I don't have the exact figures, but the amount of people who die from fentanyl overdoses each year in the United States is astronomical, and it's been a major health crisis in the US for quite some time now. And Donald Trump has made it a core policy of his to try and reduce the number of deaths and reduce the amount of fentanyl awash in the country. And of course, one of the reasons, according to Trump, for the huge number of overdoses is that you can get the components for fentanyl, you can buy them in China apparently. So what illicit drug producers, what they do, they just order them from China, they get boxed over, care of whatever courier agency you prefer to operate with, and then you have the ingredients and you make some fentanyl, and then you go out and you sell it on the streets and people die. So Trump has been very keen to crack down on this. But once again, it's a language of specifics. He said that the Chinese will work very hard. But what does that mean in reality? We don't know. The Chinese have made, as far as I understand, have made no comment. They have not defined what works very hard means in reality. So once again, we'll have to wait and see, find out what exactly all this means and what are the actual written down rules and regulations that they may or may not have agreed to follow.
Do you think the two have discussed the issue of TikTok?
TikTok? I'm sure it came up in the talks yet again, because TikTok has been once again is one of Trump's shall we say rather talking points. He likes to talk about it quite a lot. But again, it occurred in the conversation, but once again we don't really know what has actually been agreed on or what hasn't been agreed on. And for me, what an interesting takeaway from today's meeting has been is that generally when we have a discussion involving leaders of foreign powers and Trump, it is always the other leaders, they have a rather fawning, flattering attitude towards Trump. They all kind of praise him ridiculously amounts, and they say, have this award, come and meet my king, etc. in the case of the British Prime Minister.
Have a plane.
But it's funny, with China, none of this, no flattering talk. And I think the Chinese really, this is a kind of demonstration of Chinese strength. They don't need to flatter Trump. They don't need to pander to his ego. And today's talks sort of demonstrated that actually we have a sort of meeting of equals, which on a global stage, China will be very happy to project. China doesn't need to go cap in hand to Trump. China can be what it wants to be. And, yep.
It seems so, but we also know that the two have discussed the issue of Ukraine, but to what? And let's listen to Donald Trump again.
Yeah, it did come up. Ukraine came up very strongly. We talked about it for a long time, and we're both going to work together to see if we can get something done. We agreed the sides are, locked in, fighting, and sometimes you have to let them fight, I guess. Crazy. But he's going to help us, and we're going to work together on Ukraine. There's not a lot more we can do. He's been buying oil from Russia for a long time. It takes care of a big part of China. And, I can say India's been very good on that front. But we didn't really discuss the oil. We discussed working together to see if we could get that war finished.
So nothing clear again, right? We don't really know what's the outcome of these discussions on Ukraine.
No, we don't. When people were discussing the meeting before it happened, and there was hope that following, shall we say, Trump's realization that Russia is not going to not going to make peace, or that Russia is interested in waging war on Ukraine. And so Trump had this realization, and he cancelled the meeting with Putin in Budapest, slapped some sanctions on. People thought, hey, great, fantastic. He's going to meet Xi, and maybe he will push really hard to get China to push Russia harder, because China does have a huge amount of influence over Russia. And maybe Trump did try to do that. Apparently they did talk for a long time about Ukraine.
But, does he have, speaking Donald Trump's lingo, does he have any cards to play with Xi in this regard? Can he really pressure China to do something?
He could do with secondary sanctions. He could make Chinese firms' lives very difficult. Chinese firms that, say, like deal in Russian oil, or Chinese firms that supply technology to Russia, technology that eventually ends up in the navigation system of a ballistic missile. He could do that, and China would be actually quite keen to avoid that. China doesn't really want too much disruption to its trade. It has recently tried to move away from dependency on exporting to the United States, so it's diluted that I say dependency, maybe it's diluted the amount of trade it does with the United States, but it doesn't want too much disruption. So so Trump does have a certain amount of leverage, but not a great deal.
So the two major powers of the world are discussing Ukraine, and meanwhile, I have a quote from one Matthew Day. Ukraine's ability to keep its electricity flowing and the lights on has been one of its standout achievements of the war so far. That's what you write in your article. Is electricity really keeping the country afloat?
It is, and I think it is one of the most incredible things about the war, that despite being pounded relentlessly now for 3 years, the Ukrainian electricity infrastructure, the grid system, still manages to function. Mm-hmm. And don't forget that once the Kremlin realized that this war was not going to be over in a week, that it was locked into a long, hard war, it made focusing on the energy infrastructure of Ukraine a priority. What their goal was, that they wanted to obliterate the energy infrastructure, so Ukrainians would be living in the cold and in the dark, and also the economy would be completely destroyed because there'd be no power for factories, businesses to function.
That's actually what you hear on Russian propaganda channels, like let them freeze.
Yeah, and okay, sometimes Ukrainians have gone cold and they're often left in the dark, but it's been incredible the way that the resilience of the power infrastructure. So things get knocked out, they manage to repair it, and things get put online again, and then things get knocked out again, and they manage to repair, and again and again and again. And basically it functions, it exists, despite Russia's best attempts to destroy it.
Right. You're also writing about a decentralized power system, that it is helping, because obviously if you have everything in one spot, right, if you attack it with a swarm of drones and missiles and so on, there would be a blackout, right?
Yeah.
But the decentralized power system is the answer to Russian attacks.
It's one of the answers. Mm-hmm. By decentralizing means that instead of having just one great big power station supplying lots of houses, towns, cities, you have maybe smaller power units, and those smaller power units can also just be like backup ones. So you have a diesel generator, you have solar panels, mm-hmm. and solar panels can be easily, quickly installed. So if something's knocked out, then you have the solar panels which can provide a bit of power, like to a business, to a house, to a small factory or something like that. And so and they can provide power quickly, and they're easy to fix as well. Like a solar panel, if it's broken, throw it away, put a new one in straight away, and it's up and running. And also they make smaller targets to hit as well. So decentralization has been one of the factors, but of course there are a couple of other reasons, such as you have the focus on repair, which has been very important to Ukraine, because they realize you can't protect everything all the time. A missile is going to get through, a drone is going to get through. You can protect to a certain extent, but you can't protect 100%. So therefore, they need to focus on...
But it doesn't mean that Ukrainians have completely abandoned the idea of protecting the power.
They protect them to the best of their ability, but that's only so far. So the focus on repair, and sometimes repair is a lot quicker and easier and more affordable than protection to begin with. So if a power line gets knocked out, you repair that power line as quickly as possible. If a junction box gets knocked out, you repair that quickly as possible, and you make sure that you have the resources, be it in spare parts, the financial resources to buy these parts, and the human resources.
Oh, the human resources, because we know Russian tactics to strike the same spot twice, right? Yeah. Once the emergency crew gets on site to repair, they get attacked.
Yeah, and we have to remember, like these power engineers, the technicians, these are sort of unsung heroes of Ukraine, because these are people who often go into very dangerous situations. There is a danger of a double tap attack, and scores have been killed during the war. Like I was reading one figure, it was an old figure from 2023 or 2024, from one Ukrainian energy company, like 150 of their employees had been killed. And of course, the problem being is that people get killed, and also you have various engineers may have been called up into the army. So this human capital is very rare and very precious. The Ukrainian government now has introduced legislation to make engineers, electrical engineers, power engineers a protected profession, so they won't be called up to the army no matter what their age is. No matter even if they'd been in the army before, they are protected, because it's vital that you have these engineers going out into the field, working on power stations to repair things as quickly as possible, because without them, the country will grind to a halt, the economy will grind to a halt, and that would be catastrophic for Ukraine's war efforts.
And especially now, during the cold season. Matthew Day, Senior Online Editor at TVP World, was our guest this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And thank you for watching, and stay with us for more interviews here on TVP World.